and the possible lockdown of schools, which hasn't happened yet. My name is Michael Sena, and this is Ching. So Michael and Ching, and we will turn off the phone echo. So we want to show you how edQuire can help schools, really virtually anywhere in the world, schools to set up a virtual classroom in students' homes so that teachers are able to look at the class, see what the students are doing, and mentor the students in their home just as if they were in the classroom without really doing any extra effort. So edQuire is a company that's been around for 3.5 years. We're a learning analytics company. We use artificial intelligence to analyze what students are doing on their computers, and our main interest is mostly to understand how students are using computers to learn in classrooms, because there's very little data on that, generally speaking, and it's a new focus on data or evidence-based education. We've worked with universities, Sydney University, UTS, and we've had input from John Hattie and from lots of people who are very interested in the data. However, in relation to COVID, we've actually been working for 2-3 years with Singapore. In Singapore, following the SARS epidemic, the Singapore Education Department tasked a number of schools, and in particular one school that we worked with, to set up a system for homeschooling in case of a repeat epidemic, a repeat episode of SARS. And so we were fortunate enough to have worked with them to set up a system which works remotely. And in fact, this school was doing annual 10-day homeschooling practice runs, which we were involved with, to make sure that the system works. Now, I don't know, is Singapore actually, have they closed down the schools or not? I think
they still keep.
They're still open, yeah. So they haven't actually invoked this because, fortunately, they've been able to control the virus adequately. But it's something that we're actually talking to them on a daily basis. So how does edQuire work? edQuire connects to your, basically what it does is connects into your school's timetabling system and your SIS system. And for each teacher, it generates a teacher timetable. Yep. So if you want to set up a virtual classroom, say of maths, you are the maths teacher, you basically open up edQuire on your browser, you will be faced with all your lessons for the whole week. And let's say for today, you've got, well, this is a science demo or something on Monday. And next to this, you would, of course, have your usual Zoom or whichever presentation or
video conference.
Video conferencing system that you want. And so what you will then do is simply open up your lesson.
This one, yeah, this is the ongoing lesson.
Your students are, at school, at home, they're all running, rummaging and breaking things or whatever they're doing. So you need to call them to class, say in the morning at 8 o'clock. Now you don't have a bell to ring. So you're able to connect to them by sending an email. This, because it's linked to the school's
SMS systems, school management systems. So you've got all student emails there already. So simply click this button, and you can share your teaching materials with it will go to your default email setting, and you can share your document with your class.
With your classroom.
Yeah.
So first you send an email to them to say, well, the class is in case they're not there. Then they can all Zoom in. Then you've got your class already assembled, so you don't have to be, having groups of emails for each different class. Now, for junior schools, I guess the teachers have the same class all the time, but for senior schools, you will have different classes and different lesson times. So you can assemble them easily that way. Then you can send, as Ching said, send them whatever resources you want for that class time. And then, most importantly, because the students have downloaded an app, the edQuire app, you will see a tile for each student, and you will see what they're doing on the computer, and you will have their tasks color-coded using our AI engine according to whether they're on task, whether they're off task in red if they're watching Netflix instead of doing work, And blue is whether they're actually educational, but it's not exactly on your task, but they're doing some researching or something. So that's still kind of on task. So you can see that throughout the whole lesson. So you can have the class in front of you, and you don't have to be looking at the conferencing to see where their eyes are, where they're looking. You don't have to be asking them to share the screens because you have time, obviously, but you can have a good overview of how engaged the whole class is. So that's the primary real-time way that we can use this software. Of course, at the beginning and at the end of the lesson, you get a roll call. So automatically records which students were enrolled in the classroom and which were not. And we can then generate automatic upload of that to your school system so that you don't have to spend 5 minutes calling out people's names and making those records. So that's a very useful feature as well. Of course, the software then, of course, records what profiles of how students have used the computer and how well they're learning. Probably less important to you now because we're all just trying to, survive here and get the class going at home. But it certainly does generate a report. Jing, can you show us how that works?
Actually, we still want to play some displaying things at home. We don't want kids over the moon or.
Yes.
So we have this report. Yeah. So we have this report. We've divided the report into 3 parts: engagement, resource usage, and 21st century ICT skills. So after each lesson or teacher can go to this page and we will see student engagement from this lesson report.
So you can see how many students were off task, how much were on task during the lesson, and also the number of task switches between on task and off task. Probably not as important, for our immediate tasks, but it certainly gives you an idea of how engaged the students were.
Yeah.
So this is a lesson report. There's also a cumulative term report if you don't want to be looking at it on a lesson by lesson basis. So those are, and what else? What other features do you think
and we have the one coming soon feature for this one, so teacher can download the student performance into a Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah. So you may not want to be looking at these after every lesson, or even term reports. We can download the attendance records and the engagement records, just a summary. Into an Excel spreadsheet so that your IT people can process it and make the required records for the school to show how the home teaching is progressing. So that is something that will take a lot of load off the teachers' hands so that they can focus on teaching and they don't have to do this logistics for the students. So there are other.
Student portal. We have this student portal here.
So this is monitoring the students in some way that, we're looking at what they're doing on the computer. It's important that the students have ownership of this data. So we have a student portal, see what the teacher sees. And we found in previous, in classroom applications of our software in our various schools that actually students are quite keen on this. And in fact, when we turn it on, it improves engagement because students look at how much on task and off task they've been, and sometimes I guess they get a bit surprised how much time they've spent off task. And we've actually found significant improvement in engagement. Probably not immediately relevant to COVID virus and so on. You get a full disclosure of the lesson, exactly what the students were doing. And you can then look at profiles for the different
term during the term.
This is a term report, right?
Yeah.
So how they were doing during the term. In school.
We had that experiment at one school, open the student portal.
Yes, where we showed it was about a halving of the off task. Run into difficulties at home or wherever, you can actually find a trend in loss of engagement and various acting out that actually comes out in our software. For teachers, there is also notification. Can you show this to us on the live screen?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Jean.
Notification here.
Yeah, so you may not want to be looking at these graphs every time. So we have normative data, and then we look at the outliers, and then we notify you of which students you should look at because they're exhibiting some trends, either improvement or deterioration in their attendance or in the sort of things that they're looking at.
You can simply click student name and you will
You
go
go directly.
Yeah.
Right. So for each student, of course, you can click on the students and get the student's profile, get their distraction index, and how much they're using the computer, and how well they're using it, and so on. So this really allows you to see how students are using the computers at home, and allows you to mentor and make sure that students actually are engaged at home, which will be a substantial, I think, challenge. Now, the other thing that we can do, and we have an option for this, is to give parents a parent portal, which shows the parents, again, the student engagement. When at school, the last thing that a teacher would want is for the parent to be looking at what the students are doing in classroom, because then you get phone calls saying, why is Johnny doing this, or whatever. It's not relevant. However, when the students are at home, and you as a teacher don't really have the ability, nor really the responsibility for the student behavior and student engagement and student compliance. We've been thinking about, well, how will this work at home? Some schools on the North Shore that I know of actually expect the student to get dressed into a student uniform, into a school uniform, and sit in front of the live conferencing and start the class normally. So that may work in some schools. In other schools, may not work so well. The parent portal will give the parents a vision into how engaged and how compliant the students are for the school, for the home schooling. And then, so that gives the teacher an option to give this information to the parent, in order for the parent to then exercise their parental responsibility to guide the student, towards classroom behavior. We already find it useful. One area where teachers find our data very useful is for the student-parent nights, when the parents come in and you got to give them some, you give them the student performance data. And this has been found very useful by teachers, because they can actually give the parents objective evidence of the student engagement, of the student issues during the term. And so that was found useful in classroom, but I think it will have use as well, good use in homeschooling, where the parents then can take on some of the responsibility for student behavior in our virtual classrooms. So I think that covers most of this.
Actually, I'm receiving emails from school recently every single day. They're asking can edQuire work when it's not in the school environment, when students actually at home? Will you guys keep continuous collecting the student activity during 24 hours, or during school hours? What if I have my lesson out of school hours? What to do? Right. So actually, everything's configurable. So I don't think school will go 24 hours collecting data.
Singapore did.
Singapore did. But in the most of the case, we only collect student data during lesson time. Sometimes it out of school hours, they have after school tutoring or after school library thing.
Yes.
It's out of school hours, but we only collect during lesson time. Yeah.
That's right. So we turn to collection on during the lesson, turn it off in between lessons.
Yep.
The student does have an icon on their computer which actually shows edQuire, and they can actually tell from its color whether it's recording or not. So they do have some control over their privacy. So in between lessons, we don't monitor, we don't want to know. So that's an important aspect. Also, in terms of overall privacy for the IT professionals, we're an Australian company. We're located in Sydney, Homebush West, in fact, quite local. And all the data is stored on Australian servers. We have bank level security for the data transfers and all that. And we're very conscious of privacy and requirements and the 3Ps in Australia. So we're compliant with all that. So I think that covers it. Anything else that we missed out or we should have said?
Any questions?
So I guess the question is, are there any questions that people have burning in their mind? So
if your school school in Brisbane, schools here, they're actually trialing edQuire and to see how edQuire can help school during the coronavirus outbreak.
Yes.
So we're working on closely
with that.
Yeah.
I think the key thing is that this. You might ask, well, how long will it take? And
one question.
Okay. I'll generate a question myself. How long will it take to install this and all that? Maybe we're only shut down for 2 months or whatever, and is this worth it and so on. It takes normally 1 or 2 days to install with your IT managers. We have automatic links into edVal, into Timetabler. And Synergetic. So it's all kind of very automatic. And so it takes very little time to actually install.
I've got one question here.
Yep.
What devices are compatible with the software?
Well, you answer. You're the techo.
Windows, Mac, that's no problem, and Chromebook, yes, of course.
Okay. If you're using iPads, unfortunately, no. iOS operating system on iPads actually prevents us from recording what the iPad's doing. So at this stage, not.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right. If there's any other questions, don't hesitate to email us. Do they have an email?
Yes, support at edQuire.com.
Okay, support at edQuire.com. We've got a website, edQuire.com. You can look at the phone numbers there and call us directly if you've got any questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the team from edQuire. Thanking you for your attention, and it's over and out. Over to you.